Welcome to Life Empowered with Chaplain Krista Hull. Thank you so much for joining me on another journey with another awesome person, sharing what their struggle, heartache was, how they got through it, and where are they today. So regardless whether you directly relate to their story, there are always nuggets to help you live the life that God created you to live too. Take a listen. Welcome to Life Empowered. I'm so excited to have Brian today. Thank you so much, Brian, for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Uh, I know you'll be encouraged. I've known Brian for a while now, but especially I'm friends with his wife, and just excited to hear what he wants to share with you to show God's faithfulness. So, Brian, thank you again. And so dive in. Tell us. Let's just start going and tell us what it is that you were struggling with, that you were battling with.
Where I've really battled in life has been in depression. Depression has had a significant impact and for a long time a stranglehold over my life and over how I saw where God was and where I thought God wasn't. And that started at a fairly young age.
Mm.
And I remember the earliest thoughts of suicidal ideation were when I was 5.
Wow.
Um, yeah, so that was it was kind of strange and surreal. I just remember wanting to just not exist. And I remember being in a timeout in my room, and my room was on the second floor. Our house was built into a hill. I remember looking out the window and thinking, boy, how could I jump out of here and end and just cease to be? Um, and I think that got compounded later on, a couple years later. I don't remember if it was 2 or 3, but I share the same name as my dad's childhood friend who committed suicide himself. Um, and so I remember when he did that, I felt like this link that we shared names, we shared this connection. He ended his life. Maybe that's what I'm destined for, and that's where I'm headed. That's my trajectory.
Wow. And I know you as a father and me as a mother, like we couldn't imagine why a child, a 5-year-old would even think of those things. Like who would give them those thoughts? How do those thoughts and those feelings get put in a child? If there was something really horrible happening that you needed to escape, then that starts to make a little sense. And but yet still horrifying that a child would even have to go through that. I'll ask, were there some things that you now know that were going on as a little boy that made you want to escape, or were these whispers that we would now say like from the enemy putting
Yeah,
put in your head?
I think I had a pretty good childhood. These were whispers from the enemy. There's no doubt in my mind about that now, that these were straight on attacks. These are things I didn't share. Um, I kept this to myself. I know, yeah, I mean, I think there were just like these strong emotions and like the sense of, boy, yeah, we're having these great good times, but those go away.
Mm.
Like the fun and the good and the love that we're experiencing right now, like whether that's visiting family or just get-togethers or playing with friends. I just remember always feeling this is going to stop. This is going to end. We're
Wow.
not going to like this is temporary. So like it was fake joy, or that's what it felt like at that time.
Mhm.
Um, and I get like we'd call that melancholy now, but I didn't really have the words for it then. But I just remember that being a really powerful magnetic pull.
And then even
Um,
as a young child at that age too, I talk about this comes up so much is so that was a normal thing. It just became it was part of your life. So when it's more of a normal thing and not something suddenly different, why would you tell? Why would you talk about it? Because it's just how you're experiencing life. And so
yeah,
again, having those thoughts inputted in your head kind of solidified and helped lock you down because it wasn't a sudden onset of something changing. It was your normal life, so you didn't know to ask questions or say something.
yeah, yeah. I think that's a really good observation and point of it just seemed normal. That's how it was. I think that got probably compounded when we moved. I grew up in northern Wisconsin, in Tomahawk and Lake Tomahawk, and we moved down here when I was in early grade school. Actually, it was shortly thereafter that my uncle Brian had taken his own life. And I was in a new school and it was not going well there. So I think like those things definitely compounded and sent me inward and made it more difficult for me to
Hmm.
enter into what that looked like outward,
Yeah.
or how to express that, or how to engage that, or how to even bring that up. So I know in grade school, I experienced quite a bit of bullying, isolation. I'd say even one of my childhood friends that we grew up together in the neighborhood. It was not a healthy relationship, we would call it.
Mm.
I mean, I just remember like he'd always want me to change clothes because I didn't look cool, or like he didn't have pockets, so he made me carry money in my sock. And then when we bumped into the cool kids on a walk down to Culver's, it was he had to point out, look at this guy, he has change in his socks, what a loser. Like this was my
Wow.
friend. Um, so there was this growing, I get mistrust in being able to be authentic, being able to share where I was at. But at the same time, too, I had a faithful family, broken in their own different ways and kind of processing their own stuff, but they have their stories. But we were still connected to church. We were still praying. We were as often as possible eating meals together as a family. So there was like a lot of good that I was still connected to in that time, um, that allowed me to, even though this was going on internally, I wasn't sharing it with them. These were things I was able to bring to God. Um, and so even from a young age, it's like, I know he's there. I know he is who he says he is. I'm not experiencing that right now in my limited understanding. And so, I mean, I would rage against God. We have broken doors, broken closets, all sorts of things from when I would just be so angry I did not know what to do with myself.
You try and
But
express those emotions, right? All those things internally, that's how they were coming out in this rage because and often anger is from hurt and pain and just trying to find ways to express it, but also
mhm,
to make sense of it. But
yeah, and it's challenging, and I think it was a weird time. It was a weird experience. That's all I can describe it as, is strange. It was bizarre. It was this mixture of really ugly dark, and like there's still this light, this glimmer over here. And so I'm drawn towards this suicidality, but I know that I need to just kind of cling on, during those really, really rough patches.
so as
Um,
you grew and got older, and as you're talking about this, and you said you were, feeling these suicide ideation again, thinking about ways like jumping out a window, things like that. So did you ever make attempts to do this? Did you actually start to make those attempts forward?
um, no, I did not,
Mm,
which is really surprising. I remember just being paralyzed by it.
Mm.
Um, and and I think it really killed a lot of my drive. And I became honestly a poor steward of the different ways that God had gifted me.
Mhm.
And like I think most of my school years were spent just kind of like getting by to and not trying to do anything,
Mm.
like trying to let what I could just kind of ride out, whether that was school school abilities or athletics. I didn't want to put in too much effort. Just kind of wanted to sit in that weird middle space.
I find that interesting that you say that with that because I didn't have exactly the same kind of thoughts of you as you did, but even me and others, I can see that that's always seems whatever the pain is, whatever the struggle is, whether it's again suicide and thoughts of death or feeling abandoned or rejected or feeling like the shame, you're a loser, the same result is a lockdown, this veil of just surviving. We all get put
Yeah,
in this of if I can just survive, whatever I need to
yeah,
do to survive, I don't have to. Again, there are some that go the other way, like become workaholics and drive, but a lot of them just kind of put this, it's like a cloud or a veil around that they're just going through motions, doing whatever to get through today, the next day, maybe, put forth a little effort more here. So there are those two ends of spectrums though, because as I'm saying, I'm like, oh yeah, there are those workaholics, but I think more often than not, it is the other way, this way. It's this just cloud that keeps you
yeah.
from really experiencing and even dreaming. For me, I didn't dream much. I didn't have dreams in my circumstance. It was like, it was just surviving.
And I think by the time I hit high school, I had hit a point where, and like some of this was good too, of I'm going to wait on God.
Mm.
And that like there's aspects of that are good. I
Mm-hmm.
think where for me it got to a point though of like I'm going to wait on God to give me all the things that I want because I am checking all of the right boxes,
Ah.
saying the right things, I'm believing the right things. I'm volunteering to help out with our Sunday school at church, as like a an older high schooler and young college student. And um, I really thought like, hey, I graduated high school, got into college. I was good enough to play on the college football team where I went, which isn't saying like we weren't great or anything like that. So I'm not trying to be like, oh man, I was so good or anything. But like I'm at the same time, I'm like, I'm not putting forth much effort. I
Mm.
mean, I drove my parents nuts because I would pass tests. I would do no homework. I wouldn't hand anything in, but I tested well. And so that would get me through.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything was bare minimum. I'd rather play video games. Rather, I didn't hang out or go party with people. Stuck to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, made friends, but a lot of it was surface level stuff. It wasn't like real, true, deep
Yeah.
friendship. And that I was keeping that arm's length distance and kind of living a Jonah life of like, I know God is nudging me to do certain things, but I really don't want to. Like, that's stepping out on a limb. That's, let me just be comfortable, get by, keep my head down, don't have anybody pry too much. I really don't feel like opening up or sharing who I am.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and you know what, God, that'll be enough. And then you just give me your blessings, right? Because that's how it's supposed to work. This is the exchange that I'm expecting.
Yeah.
And And I would never have put it in those terms
Mm-hmm.
at the time, but I
Yeah.
know like looking back, yeah, I was expecting God to do things for me
And that's
without
why
actually
I said
surrendering.
I want to just explain. That's why I kind of chuckled. Not that I was laughing at you. I was
No, no.
laughing at the understanding of like we all have that in some level at some point of yeah, this is good, and we justify in our mind, we make our own rules, and we're like, I do know you're real, God, and I even love you, and this is good. And so I was kind of laughing at just the foolishness of what we do, but we don't know it in the moment. We know it later when we get through, but when we look back now, it's kind of like, oh, foolish, foolish person. This
Yeah.
God we're
Yeah.
talking about. Who are you? But yes, so again, not laughing at you, just
No, no, no.
understanding of our foolish justification and decisions that we make. Yeah.
There's a comic level to it, and you just have to think that like God, our good and loving Father, probably has some chuckles at those moments too, every
Yes.
now and then.
Oh, yes.
Um, and
But he still loves us. And again,
yeah.
the gentleness, because again, he is a righteous God and holy. And
Hmm.
yet he could just like, "Psh, you fool, psh, you're gone, right? But that's not who he is because he looks at us as our precious children and he's like, you silly little child, don't you know how much I love you? That's
Yeah.
how he really responds. He, don't you know? Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm on this path of, hey, I graduated high school. I'm going to college. Doing all the right things, checking
Hmm.
all the boxes of our nice middle class American version of Christianity.
Hmm.
Um, I meet Christy at college,
Hmm.
and like she really helped me. Well, she challenged me, number one, with her just some of our different faith backgrounds. So there was like good friction right off the bat,
Hmm.
um, where I think we both challenged each other. And it's interesting. So like after we met, I feel like our faith pendulums were swinging in different directions.
Mm.
And I think hers was going up and mine was kind of reverting back. So like I met Christy, all of a sudden I have this, oh, I like her. I probably should do stuff so that I can potentially provide for her if this goes anywhere. So I start buckling down and actually doing some work in school and getting things done and getting on the right track.
Uh-huh.
But at the same time, then I am like at this point in time, I'm 21 now. I'm going out almost like 3 nights a week and every weekend and having myself a great time. Um, Drinking way too much
Mm.
and just like, but it's okay because I'm making up for it in these other areas.
Mm.
And so here's where kind of there's this shift. It's the same thing. It just shifted in how it came out, right? So I was kind of hiding, coasting through, and now it's like, okay, now I'm putting forth effort, but I still need to bury all of these things that I have not dealt with. How
Hmm.
am I going to do? Oh man, alcohol makes me feel phenomenal. Like I feel really good. I feel fun. I feel connected to people that I am out with who are also imbibing. I would justify that with, yeah, but I'm doing all the things that I need to do. So this is for me.
You're still a good
Like this,
person and you know God's there and right. But yes, but
yeah.
I get that.
So I'm setting this apart and this is for me. The depression isn't going away. It's still there. Like I'm happy. I met this beautiful, incredible young woman. Like I'm in love. So I'm feeling this, but it's like I'm
Yes.
still depressed, still don't feel whole.
Yeah.
Um, man, alcohol helps cover that up, helps hide that. And when we got married right out of college, and that came with, right? So I love Christy, and this is not like we were figuring each other out. Neither of us knew what we had expectations and didn't necessarily communicate the best beforehand in terms of what that ought to look like. And I think there's been a real beauty in that because, I mean, it's iron sharpening iron. It's been those friction points where we both had to humble ourselves, and or be humbled in not the best ways. But I
Yeah.
think like our early marriage was difficult for both of us. We were not connected. There was this disconnection. And
Hmm.
so I would fill that. I got into sales and I would fill that by, oh, she's doing this project, she's picking this up. That was kind of how she filled her time. I'd go out with the guys that I worked with or with people that we were connecting with or clients or whatever. Um, and so I was still kind of like using alcohol as a means to fill that void. And the depression wasn't going away. Um, it's building, it's building. I knew that the job I'd taken right out of college, I remember in the interview I was telling it was a sales job, and I'm like, yeah, I'm getting married. I need to make money, so that's what this is about. And I knew like it was from the Holy Spirit. It was a hard no, don't do this. This is not what I've called you into. I was
Hmm.
like, yeah, but this is what makes sense and this is what's right here and I'm going to go
Hmm.
for it.
I know better. I
And
know best. Yes.
yeah, yeah.
I need money and I
Thanks.
need it now. So,
Exactly.
yes.
And things started out great. Things were going really well, and but they weren't. Like
Uh-huh.
I already knew internally the turmoil was still there. And then that blew up. The relationships with the people I worked with blew up in a pretty bad way. We ended up like that was a fight we're not going to win in an earthly sense. And so I lost. The other team members retained all the clients, retained all of our business. And I was basically starting from scratch after 5 years of
Oh.
being a part of this.
Mm.
And that's really, really difficult. And we had just had our son. So we had
Ah.
a 2 year old and we just had a newborn. Now it's like starting over with zero income. We
And
end
the
up
pressure
getting
is higher.
yeah, and the pressure's higher. And I mean, I am not keeping my cool.
Mm.
I'm not. We get evicted from our apartment. I quit the job because I'm not able to generate the revenue. And it makes sense, right? I'm calling people more panicked and frantic, and pushy and not in a healthy way.
Mm.
And then this leads to burning bridges. And nobody's going to want to meet with somebody who's pushy, 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 like
Mhm.
gimme, gimme, gimme. Like by the grace of God, things had worked out where my dad he's a doctor. He had reopened his clinic and they let us move in with them. And he's like, you can come and work for me as my office staff. Very difficult time on multiple levels, probably for them, just as
Yes.
much as it was for us.
Uh-huh.
And I
Anyone
am
who's
just,
been married knows.
yeah,
And
yeah.
again, anyone's parents or in-laws, yeah, it does. I
And
mean, they're
it's
not
nothing
all bad,
against
but
any
it's
of them.
still
No,
not good.
it's not easy, and we're
Yes.
people, and everybody
Yes.
has expectations, and
Hmm.
we don't always share what those expectations are. We just assume.
Hmm.
Um, and I am just like more and more like, wow, this is the first time that I've tried, and this is what happens. And
Mm.
I am like so mad at God right now. I'm like, look, I did all the things. I graduated. I got a job. I started a family. I'm going to church. I'm volunteering. I'm doing all these things. Like, why are you not blessing me?
Mm.
Where are you right now?
Yeah.
Because you're not here when I need you. I end up on antidepressants.
Mm.
I'm still drinking. I mean, I am not a very large man. I'm up to almost 300 pounds at this point,
Oh.
mostly from the alcohol consumption.
Mm.
And then you add in those other medications, and it's like you go from like being able to drink a fair amount because you've built up this tolerance to you have 2 beers and you are blackout drunk.
Wow.
And I'm like going out like that. I remember there was a time where I'd met up with a friend. I blacked out. I woke up driving down to Racine. I had missed an exit and I drove off on grass off the highway. And I was trying to go from Milwaukee to New Berlin and I'm down in Racine.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I remember our car spinning out and I am really fortunate. I end up on that little side road, on that frontage road, safe. Okay. Like 3 weeks later, a distant cousin of mine drives home from a party with his dog and he had had too much to drink. He hits a tree, kills his dog. He's paralyzed from the waist down. That still was not enough of a wake up call for
It
me.
wasn't, yeah, you kept hiding.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm
Mm.
still like, man, man, I am so lucky. It's really awful for him, but man, I am so fortunate. All right, back to it.
Because you didn't have a different
And
alternative answer. I mean, I
yeah,
guess you don't want to die, but what else am I supposed to do? This is how I survive. This is how I'm trying to make it. So until you
yeah,
get an answer. So what did something come about that finally was sudden, or was it a slow thing that you finally realized what needed to change? Or yeah.
yeah. I mean, I knew something needed to be different. Um, I was not willing to go there until I got an OWI. Um, and I had to call Christy from jail and at like 3 in the morning, and she's pregnant at this time, I believe, with 2 kids. We're living with my parents, and it's like that was a oh wow, you're a real mess. You're you're not okay. Like this isn't okay. And I
No.
mean, there's tons of stuff in between those things happening. I
Sure.
mean, I remember like so much prayer from Christy, from my parents, from other people that we knew and trusted. But I mean, there was a time where I came home and I was trying to punch myself to death. I was trying to beat myself, and she just prayed over me,
Mm.
cast out a spirit, and I just collapsed immediately. So, I mean, this was a long work of God. That was the thing that really like this has gone too like this has gone way too far now. Was that OWI? I mean, I went dry pretty shortly after that.
Wow.
Um, started seeing a Christian counselor who was incredible and really helped me understand. Like, I'm just thinking I'm an alcoholic. I just have a this is just a drinking problem. And he's like, no, this is you have a depression problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have a deep woundedness that you're not dealing with or addressing, and you're using this to mask it. So I'm thinking, oh, this is an alcohol problem. I went to Celebrate Recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there were good things that happened there, but I remember like these stories aren't clicking, they're not resonating. Kind of are, but not at that core level.
Yeah.
Um, so I was right back into I'm going to go through the motions.
Mm.
And this Christian counselor, he really kind of shook my perspective quite a bit. I was like, oh, yeah, that's probably fair. Like I knew I was on antidepressants, but alcohol's a depressant, so it was probably making me feel depressed. And it's like, no, this has been an ongoing issue for a long time.
Yeah.
It's just really gotten out of control. Um, and so this was the time where we really entered into a time of surrender, of giving up on my way and submitting to somebody who knew so much more than I did, which is our Father. I think it was kind of this time where it was like you need to stop focusing so much on yourself and you need to remember I am calling you out into things And
Mm.
we like throughout this whole time still going to church, again, still trying to check the boxes to justify everything. And we had just watched a movie, and I don't remember what the name of the movie is. I remember the book that it's based off of that has a much more memorable title. It's another BS Night in Suck City is the book,
Oh,
and it's about a young man who it's a true story about a guy who volunteers for a homeless shelter, and he meets his father, a homeless man who had been incarcerated for
oh wow.
extended time and struggled with alcohol and all sorts of things.
Hmm.
I just remember watching that movie and being like, they're going out giving coffee to guys who are out on the street because it's cold. Just something simple like that. And finding genuine connection in brokenness. And shortly after seeing that movie, I saw an advertise or like not an advertisement, but they were promoting in our church a volunteer opportunity through what's called James Place, which is through Elmbrook Church.
Hmm.
Um, and they just go and find a place. The one that I went to was in Waukesha. You show up, you listen, you meet people where they're at, and you minister to and you're ministered to, all at the same time.
Yes.
And I was like, I need to get involved in that. And that was another, right? I have this history of Holy Spirit. Yep, I hear you calling, but this is the direction I want to go. It was like, nope, this is a Holy Spirit prompting.
Mm.
I need to go and be connected there. I don't know what that's going to look like or what that's going to entail. Um, and I'm still working for my dad, and he's got super flexible hours for me. Like, I mean, so gracious in that, such a gift from God. And I can volunteer on, like, I think Tuesdays during their 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. window or whatever that ended up being.
Uh-huh.
So I just start going down there, meet people, get connected with people, end up like after a while, end up, and this is like there's all sorts of things going on in terms of the healing process. And it's prayer, it is wise counsel, it was patience from people when I needed patience.
Hmm.
And it's all these gifts from God when you look back and like this is God orchestrating and speaking to people and people listening to him. And right, we're a body of believers. We don't do this solo. We don't do this by ourselves. It was people coming around me
Hmm.
um, in the times that I needed them to, and really inviting me back in. And I mean, it was a prodigal journey.
Hmm.
And I really like when that father runs out to meet his son, that's what was happening. Like he was running out to meet me the moment I surrendered.
He is good. That was going to be
So
my
good.
question. It says they will know him by his love. So you were, so am I understanding this, or can you give me more information of were you feeling his love by each of these people coming into your life? How was it? Where were you feeling the love? Because I feel until you know and feel that love, you don't change. Otherwise, it's
Yeah.
just in your head, not in your heart. So, did you feel that love when you surrendered or that led you to surrender? What did that look like, those feelings of love for you?
Yeah, I think like it was like a 5 year shame spiral in which I wanted other people to not love me the way that I did not love myself.
Mm,
And I was trying as hard as I could without realizing it to push people away, to alienate myself, to isolate myself, to make myself worthy of the fate that I thought I was destined for from the time that I was 8 years old. Getting arrested, having to call Christy. I think that was like this is it. This is going to be the moment of like everybody sees me for who I am. not worthy, not lovable. And that's not what I got. And and that's not to say like people's hearts weren't broken. Like I
Yeah.
didn't hurt people. I hurt people pretty badly. But I think people being able to enter into that with their pain, but with that love and with that grace. Like they were a witness to me of like, hey, we're working through this and processing this, but we know that God loves you. And this is how we know. And I was able to see that and experience that and hear him saying, like, do you see now? Do you see now? That just broke me. I came to the end of myself, and that's where that shift happened. That's where there was movement.
Mm.
Um, that's where like I came out of a living death. It's been pretty incredible. I mean, there have been hard things since then, so it's
Oh,
not
yeah.
like
Right.
it's
You're done with
all
that now. Everything's beautiful
yeah,
now that you surrender. Yeah, we wish,
yeah.
but again, you already knew that he was for you. So again, it was another step of faith right through those things.
Hmm.
So, and you said, I call that like that beautifully broken, right? He broke you
Yeah.
with the love because that's what it is. It's not about following rules or checking boxes because that's empty. We can do that in
Mm,
any other
mm,
role. But what our God, our creator, he wants a relationship. And then even there's in the Christian world, we talk about this relationship, but we accept that word, but still think it's these checking these boxes. I read my Bible. I went to church. I care about these people. I'm not a bad person. And
I
so
tithed. Yeah.
I am morally better than I was before, or morally better than these all outside people. So I'm a Christian, I'm religious, but
Mm,
that's not what God
mm.
wants. God wants us to walk in this relationship like you do with your wife, like you do
Yeah.
with your children, like you do with your parents. I mean, obviously, there are different roles in those relationships, but it's a relationship. And God gave us that design because we were made out of relationship for Him, with Him. And then these are the other peripheral, we'll call it relationships. And you have to have love, you have to have trust, you have to have vulnerability,
Mm,
to have connection, to have relationship. And the God who made us, who knows what he created us to do, as you hinted at it, to take that sales job that wasn't for you, that he knows what he put in us better than we do. He
yeah.
knows more of because he made us, but he doesn't ever force us, doesn't ever make us. He still gives us constant choice, even when it's going to hurt us, even when it's against what he wants for us, even when it's pushing him away, he lets us choose.
Yeah.
Because he is
It's
so
this beautiful
gracious.
invitation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
It really is.
in this journey of walking towards that, walking through that and finding that, there's a couple things that could go in other tangents, but we talk more, but I'll probably throw in a little, but have you go in the one direction we need to go is, so what I see is that somehow the enemy knew something of a calling on your life that he put that in your head because as a 5-year old, you weren't showing that you were going to be this awesome whatever
Yeah.
created you to be. You were a 5-year old kid. But yet the enemy was putting those lies. Yes, it does say in his word that the enemy is always out to steal, kill, and destroy. And just because you were made as a human, as God's child, that right there is already a platform where the enemy hates you and wants because he's a jealous enemy as well because
Mm,
he wants really Jesus' position. He wants this elevation and he sees us, we're all in the way because of God's grand plan. We are in his way of getting what he wants. And so he wants to steal, kill, and destroy us. But I also feel that maybe there's more to that for you specifically of a certain role or position, what God has called you to, why the enemy was already out to set you up to destroy you and maybe another level. Do you know where God? again, there's always
Hmm.
more. God's continuously revealing more to us in the journey of our relationship. But are you seeing where you are today and where He's leading you to go? Are you seeing some of that become more clear for you? And what is that goodness of God and what He's called you to be? What are you seeing right now?
Yeah, yeah.
That's loaded, I know.
It is, it is. I mean, there's so much. I think even the last decade has been an incredible unveiling of and shaping of those different gifts. I overall what I am seeing is this redemption of some of the beauty within a melancholy disposition, which I think that can sound really strange, but I think like my favorite book in the Bible is Job.
Mm,
It's one of my favorite books in the Bible because it's real, because it's hard. And that is the space that God enters into, willingly gets his hands dirty and brings about this bizarre and beautiful redemptive story. I have always felt called in a very poetic sense towards something around words and language. Um, and I think that like right now I do grant writing. So there's like a very practical end of where I am doing that now. I do some teaching for we homeschool our kids. I teach at a co-op that they're a part of.
mm,
I am going to be speaking. I've spoken at our church, and I will be speaking at another church. Actually, the pastor who oversaw James Place and hired me as a director. His current church, where he's the lead pastor, and I'm going to be speaking at his church on Sunday. But I think there is something in this storytelling, being able to enter into. I think having been in extreme dark and being brought through, I feel very comfortable in dark places because I know where the light is.
mm.
I
Oh,
know
that's a
that
good
I
way
know
to
that
say that.
sometimes, yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes the darkness is God's protective shadow. Um, and we don't understand how that's working quite yet. But he has called us to be salt and light in a dark world.
Mhm.
And that looks very different, I think, for each of us.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's answering your question. It's kind of vague. I
Mm.
was like literally I thought you were going to ask something along those lines this morning, and I know there's an almost finished novel in there that I think this is the year that I'm going to get back to it and and finish that up, and
Mm.
that asks and enters into a lot of the same questions that I was wrestling with during that time. Like a lot of it was written during that time.
Wow.
Um, and so to go back and look at it with fresh eyes and not rose-colored glasses, because I think those real stories are important. And I think you know this in the women and the men that you walk alongside too. People can smell fake pretty far away. Like,
Yeah.
and it's easy to put on airs, but and when you've been through it and been in it and you see God's goodness on the other side of that, and you can then see God's goodness throughout, that's powerful. And that's real. And that's part of why I love Job so much too.
Mm. As you say those words, the things that come to my head are thinking of if we have our eyes open to look around the world, even outside of our own bubble, our own city, but just anywhere we look, how much darkness, how much evil, how much brokenness that could be enough to make us all very depressed, even if it isn't
Yeah.
specifically directly to us. It can make us really depressed, even looking to the future. You know, our government, other governments, world problems. It really is if we could keep our eyes open, but we get distracted and we go elsewhere, and that's okay sometimes. But also I think of one of my favorite Psalms now is Psalm 18, and and there's other verses throughout the Bible that have come out to me, but it was there first that again how God is hiding in the
Hmm.
darkness. And I'm like,
Hmm.
well, actually, I don't think it says hiding, but he's behind because he doesn't hide. He's in the darkness. And I was like, what? And then part of and again, it's multi-layered, right? His word is alive and living. So there's two ways I've kind of seen it is one is because the enemy can't see him there. And it's a way to surprise him and whatever, show off. And then the other part is again, he made the darkness. He made the light. He knows he gives and hence why we have such an enemy and so many enemies because he gave them choices and they
Yep.
choose to do what they're doing. But he's there in the darkness. Just like you said, you can be in the dark because you've been there, but you know where the light is. And
Yeah.
again, he holds it all, the dark and the light. He holds every tear, he holds every wound. And then also, like I already said, how the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy, and he does not sleep. And he has many workers and many people that join him. And again, come in. Our enemy is powers, principalities, dominions, all of that. But also, they come in the flesh because the flesh, other people have partnered with him. And so that makes it more complicated and more confusing. But yet, God sees it all.
Yeah.
And he wants like you said, to meet in the darkness, to go in the darkness, to not be afraid. Because even when that darkness comes upon us in different seasons, in different ways, in our face, surrounding us, in our family, or farther out, he already knew. He already knows. And his plan is like in Isaiah, throughout Isaiah, through so many things, is he comes to turn it around. Again, the pile of ashes, the thorns, the beating, the broken bones to heal, to turn it around and make it beautiful. Like you even said, going back to those things because he's going to pull out even more and more gems, more and more
Yeah.
gems to put in your crown, more crowns to put on your head because he doesn't waste a thing. That's who I've
No.
seen, God. And that is what the Bible proclaims over and over, just in Job. Again, it's not that it was all for waste and all for nothing. No, he's using every piece and he can turn it around and make it into something that has life and has beauty and has royalty, what the enemy meant for our death and our destruction. And yeah, so now I'm kind of going on
Yeah.
a rant, but just
No, you're good.
where my
I
brain
love
was
it.
going when you were talking about that.
I think like so much of that is with the enemy, he does such an incredible job of shackling us to shame.
Yes.
And we live enslaved to shame. And then we heap sin on top of that. And that's where I was. I was just trapped by this shame. And I think that's where I feel really compelled and drawn towards is exploring these depths of shame and what that looks like to where those turning points are because they don't always seem really obvious. They
Hmm.
can be really, really small moments. And yeah, just capturing that is incredible because it leads to so much more. And right, it's God wasn't in the fire, wasn't in the storm. He's in that whisper, that still small voice. And sometimes it's those still small moments that transform what felt like something gigantic and insurmountable. Right. And this is the God who turned an execution into life everlasting.
Yeah.
So
And that spiritual gift of redemption because of Jesus' blood, because of his wounds. He is the lamb that was slain. He is.
mm,
And he is the Lion of Judah. He is the Son of God. He is our groom. He is all those things at the same time. And so again, he is the perfect one that meets us in any place, in every place, and nothing is too far, nothing is too dark. With God, we can do all things through Him. By the blood of Jesus, we can have the victory. We can overcome
Amen.
anything that He throws at
Mm.
us, anything that we've brought into our life. We can have the victory if we surrender, call on the name of Jesus, and trust in Him. We can make it and not just survive, but overcome and be victorious.
Amen. I love it. Like sometimes when we're afraid of God's goodness because of our shame, because
Mhm.
of our sin, because of the lies that the enemy heaps upon us, we fear that we can't bring something to God.
Mm.
And like that's exactly the posture that he does not want us to have because he doesn't want us to bring something to him. He doesn't want us to become great stewards so that he can get stuff out of us.
Mhm.
He wants us to realize who we are as he's made us, as he loves us. He wants us to dwell and rest and walk in his light and in his love. That's a place that I think I want to live out of, and I want to encourage other people to live out of too.
That's awesome. That's a great word. And it's so freeing because that is when light you can actually live your life in freedom when you live and walk that out because it's no longer striving, no longer I've got to do this and that. It's more of a, okay, you got this. I'm following
Yeah,
you.
yeah. Even when I stumble, even when I say the wrong thing, even when I do the wrong thing,
Yeah.
like I can give that right back to him.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again, Brian, for joining us. And so, if you enjoyed hearing this story and you want to hear other stories, please share and subscribe to Life Empowered because that's the only reason this is here. This isn't for me, this brings us no money. This is just to encourage others to know who they are and walk in the goodness and the freedom of walking the way God intended us to live. So, thank you. Have a wonderful day.